Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama
Hare Krishna, and welcome to the Sunday reading of the Srimad-bhagavatam, Delhi, original Delhi editions by the Hare Krishna Society, conducted by Yaśodā-nandana Dāsa. Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu is a senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada, who Srila Prabhupada made in charge of the installation of the deities at the Hyderabad temple in 1976 and in 1977 the Fiji temples. And he was also instrumental in the construction of the Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan and the Mayapur Chandrodaya Mandir in Mayapur. So I'd like to welcome him to start.
Well, thank you very much. Today is a very special day. We are celebrating the disappearance day of Sri Ishwarapuri, the spiritual master of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. According to the We're trying to bring something here. According to the Mayapur calendar, his disappearance day was yesterday, but given that we're assembling here on Sunday, we're going to be celebrating his disappearance day by reading a few excerpts and statements from Srila Prabhupada about the exalted position of Sri Ishwarapuri. And also, I believe that Shivaratri is coming up very soon. According to the Mayapur calendar, Shivaratri will be tomorrow on Monday, 16th of February. So we'll be reading one or two statements about the exalted position of Lord Shiva. Okay, with regards to Ishwarapuri, just late yesterday, Ishan Prabhu was telling me that he could not be in the class today in the reading, but because he had to drive and pick up a relative at the airport. But he sent me a few very nice selection of quotes from Srila Prabhupada about Ishwarapuri and a few very pertinent comments to the current situation we are facing. This is a condensed from Srila Prabhupada's purport to Madhya Lila, chapter 10, Madhya Lila, text 136. Govinda was the personal servant of Lord Chaitanya. Even though Govinda came from a Shudra family, Govinda had received initiation from Ishwarapuri. However, according to the Smriti Shastra, which gives direction for the management of the Varnashram institution, a Brahmana cannot accept a disciple from the lower caste. Nevertheless, Ishwarapuri gave Govinda initiation, and Govinda had acted as the personal servant of Ishwarapuri. According to such tradition, if a spiritual master accepts such a person, he is contaminated. Therefore, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya asked Lord Chaitanya why Ishwarapuri accepted a disciple from a Shudra family. Srila Prabhupada writes as follows. In answer to this question, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied that his spiritual master Ishwarapuri was so empowered that he was as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As such, Ishwarapuri was the spiritual master of the whole world. He was not a servant of any mundane rule or regulation. An empowered spiritual master like Ishwarapuri can bestow his mercy upon anyone, irrespective of caste or creed. The conclusion is that a spiritual master who is authorized and empowered by Krishna and his own guru should be considered as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. That is the verdict of Vishwanath Chakravarti, Sakshadaриtvena Shastra. An authorized spiritual master is as good as Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As Hari is free to act as he likes, the empowered spiritual master is also free. As Hare is not subject to mundane rules and regulations, the spiritual master empowered by him is also not subject. According to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya-lila 7:11, Krishna Sakti Vina Nahitar Pravartana. An authorized spiritual master empowered by Krishna can spread the glories of the holy name of the Lord, for he has power of attorney from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the mundane world, anyone possessing his master's power of attorney can act on behalf of his master. Similarly, a spiritual master empowered by Krishna through his own bona fide spiritual master should be considered as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. That is the meaning of Sakshadaritvena. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore describes the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the bona fide spiritual master as follows. The foregoing, you please put it back. This was from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 10, text 136. Therefore, in response to the Bhattacharya's question regarding the innovations introduced by Ishwarapuri, Lord Chaitanya answered as follows. Madhya Lila, chapter 10, text 137. Chapter 10, text 137. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, both the Supreme Personality of Godhead and my spiritual master are completely independent. Therefore, neither the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead nor that of Ishwarapuri is subject to any Vedic rules or regulations. In his purport to Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 10, text 139, Srila Prabhupada writes, Ishwarapuri, an empowered spiritual master, could show mercy to anyone. As such, he accepted Govinda, although the boy was born in a Shudra family. When Govinda was initiated, he became a Brahmana and was accepted as Ishwarapuri's personal servant. In the Hari Bhakti Vilasa, Sri Sanatana Goswami states that one who is initiated by a bona fide spiritual master immediately becomes a Brahmana. A pseudo-spiritual master cannot transform a person into a Brahmana, but an authorized spiritual master can do so. This is the verdict of Shastra, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and all the Goswamis. This was from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 10, text 129 to 139. In Madhya Lila, chapter 10, text 142, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then continued speaking to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Consider this point. The servant of the spiritual master is always respectable for me. Chapter 10, text 143. As such, it is not befitting that the Guru's servant should engage in my personal service. Yet my spiritual master is giving this order. What shall I do? Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. A Guru's servant or disciples are all God brothers to one another, and as such they should all respect one another as Prabhu or Master. No one should disrespect his God brother or try to engage him as a servant. For this reason, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya what to do about Govinda. Govinda was the personal servant of Ishwarapuri, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's spiritual master. And now, Ishwarapuri had ordered Govinda to become Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's personal servant. So what was to be done? This was the inquiry Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu placed before Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, an experienced friend. Text 144. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, the order of the spiritual master is very strong and cannot be disobeyed. That is the injunction of the Shastras, the revealed scriptures. Text 145. The order of the spiritual master must be obeyed without consideration. A few little notes here from Ishan Prabhu. In the above verses and purports, two questions concerning the dictates of Shastric evidence have been raised and answered. The first question is it right for a spiritual master to accept student who was not born the son of a Brahmana? The next question raised is, was it proper for Lord Chaitanya to accept his own godbrother as his personal servant? Both of these actions are in violation of various Shastric evidences. However, Srila Prabhupada makes the point in his purport, Madhya Lila 10:136, quote, the conclusion is that the bona fide guru is as independent of Shastric guidelines as the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Similarly, Lord Chaitanya is saying that according to Shastra, he knows that his actions is incorrect, and yet he feels that the order of the empowered spiritual master take precedence over the dictates of Shastra. Now, let's consider these conclusions, which are in contrast with the way in which ISKCON operates today. 1. ISKCON is saying that according to Shastra, the Diksha Guru must be a living Guru, and therefore they're appointing Kanishta devotees as gurus. The word Kanishta means unsteady, and it is common knowledge that several of the ISKCON gurus, just one second here, have fallen down. In this connection, Srila Prabhupada writes, in the Nectar of Instruction, that the spiritual master must be a topmost Mahabhagavata pure devotee. Why? Because Srila Prabhupada explains it is a fact that the disciple's spiritual advancement cannot exceed the advancement of his spiritual master. And therefore, disciples that are not under the shelter of an empowered pure devotees cannot become qualified to go back to Godhead under that direction. Ram Raghava, everything that I'm reading here was from the email I sent you last night. Also, regarding the idea that the spiritual master has to be living in order to initiate his disciple, Srila Prabhupada tells us in his introduction to the first chapter in his Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita that Narottam Das Thakur accepted Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti as his disciple, even though it is recorded they appeared almost a century apart. 2. ISKCON is saying that according to their research, Bhoga must be offered to the Supreme Lord first, and then to the spiritual master. Whereas we have documented instructions from Srila Prabhupada stating that we are to offer Bhoga first to Srila Prabhupada, then to Lord Chaitanya, and then to Krishna. Number 3, again, ISKCON is saying that in spite of the fact that Srila Prabhupada adamantly decreed that his books not be altered, ISKCON is not only making thousands of changes in Srila Prabhupada's books, but they're actually giving orders that Srila Prabhupada's original books must not be distributed. 4, ISKCON has institutionalized complete centralization of authority over all ISKCON temples. The chain of command goes down from the GBC, then to a network of appointed gurus, though whom every student is under the control of the GBC's central management. However, we have it in writing that Srila Prabhupada has directed that every temple be independent in its ways and means, and that the responsibility of the GBC is to simply to see that the devotional practices of the society are to be maintained according to the standards that Srila Prabhupada has given to us. In other words, concerning the rejection of Srila Prabhupada as the Diksha Guru of ISKCON, as well as the appointment of neophyte devotees as gurus to assume the seat of Srila Prabhupada, And concerning the refusal of ISKCON leader to offer our bhoga preparation to Srila Prabhupada before offering to Krishna, and concerning the adulteration of Srila Prabhupada's books, as well as instructing that Srila Prabhupada's original books cannot be distributed, as well as completely changing the system of independent administration of ISKCON temples in violation of Srila Prabhupada's legal will, recorded on June 4th, 1977, the GBC of ISKCON has overridden Srila Prabhupada's direct instructions according to their whimsical discretion and personal ambitions. Therefore, let us again hear Srila Prabhupada's conclusive statements in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 10:136, quote, "The conclusion is that a spiritual master who is authorized and empowered by Krishna and his own guru should be considered as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. That is the verdict of Vishwanath Chakrabarti, Sakshadaritvena. An authorized spiritual master is as good as Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As Hari is free to act as he likes, the empowered spiritual master is also free. As Hari is not subject to mundane rules and regulations, the spiritual master empowered by him is also not subject. A spiritual master empowered by Krishna through his own bona fide spiritual master should be considered as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. That is the meaning of Sakshadaritvena." Then we're reading from a very important conversation with Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan on March 10th, 1972. Srila Prabhupada was engaged in a room conversation with John Greaser, later initiated as Yadubara Dasa. "The Acharya is as good as I am." Krishna says, "Na avamanyena karichit," never neglect him. "Namartya buddhya suyeta," never be envious of the Acharya, thinking him as anything of this material world. Acharya mam vijaniyan. Srimad-bhagavatam 11:17-27. Therefore, Acharya's position is as good as Krishna. Sakshadaritvena samasta shastrer. Acharya is always cautious that he may not be subject to criticism. But who criticizes Acharya, he becomes immediately offender, because he's playing the part of Acharya. He plays as far as possible, but sometimes for preaching work, he might have to do something which is not consistent. Ordinary man cannot transgress the laws, but Krishna and his representative Acharya might be sometimes seen that he has transgressed. Therefore, Krishna says, Acharya mam vijaniyan, Srimad-bhagavatam 11:17-27. One should know the Acharya as my own self and never disrespect him in any way. One should not envy him, thinking him an ordinary man. That should be the position. If you are in doubt, then don't go there. That is the position. Again, in his purport to Srimad-bhagavatam 9.463, Srila Prabhupada instructs as follows. Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur therefore says, Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasadaha. If one very sincerely served the spiritual master, Krishna certainly becomes favorable to such a devotee. Following the instruction of a devotee is more valuable than following the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly. Similarly, Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur highlights the absolute authority of the self-realized spiritual master in his Tattva Sutra. Quote, devotees of the Supreme Lord are not controlled by the scriptures, since their activities are congenial to divine wisdom. When self-realized devotees ordain any new arrangement, this should be accepted as religious code. even if such new arrangements are not found in the scriptural dictums of the previous ages. In closing, therefore, while remembering and glorying Srila Ishwarapuri, whose innovative implementations in the role of Guru were accepted by Lord Chaitanya himself, let us embrace without doubt the instruction of Srila Prabhupada, accepting them as our life and soul. We very much thank Ishan Prabhu for this very nice compilation in these various points. Very important point. Now, with regards to Ishwarapuri, it's to be understood that Ishwarapuri, this is a very interesting story related in Chaitanya Bhagavatam. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu once visited the birthplace of Ishwarapuri, and he took a little bit of dust, like a little ball of dust from the place where Ishwarapuri had been born. And every day he would take a few particles of dust. Now, what happened, all the Vaishnavas, when they heard this, what they did is that they went to that same place and they started to take some dust. Eventually, it created a big lake, a big hole, and it got filled with sacred water. So this place called Chaitanya Doba in Bengal, very, very special place. In the email that we've actually shown that picture of that lake. If any one of you are not receiving the emails before the classes, please contact Ram Raghavan Prabhu or myself or both, and we will make sure that you receive the material. Here's the material. That picture there, this is the little lake that was formed as the result of all the devotees taking pieces from that lake and just taking a few particles, and eventually it filled with sacred water. Very, very special. We will read a few selected passages here from Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is from Adilila, chapter 9, text 11. Sri Ishwarapuri rupe ankura pushtayala, apane Chaitanya mali skanda upajila. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The seed of devotional service next fructified in the form of Sri Ishwarapuri, and then the gardener himself, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, became the main trunk of the tree of devotional service. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Sri Ishwarapuri was a resident of Kumarhatta, where there is now a railroad station. Where there is now a railroad station known as Kamarhatta. Nearby, there is also another station named Hali Sahara, which belongs to the Eastern Railway that runs from the eastern section of Calcutta. Ishwarapuri appeared in a Brahmin family and was the most beloved disciples of Srila Madhavendra Puri. In the last section of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antyalila 8:28-31, it is stated, Ishwarapuri Gosai Kari Sripad Sevan, Swahaste Karina Malamutradi Marjan, Nirantara Krishna Nam Karaya Smaran, Krishna Nam Krishna Ladashunaya Anukshan, Tushtahan Puri Atandre Kale Alingana, Varadila Krishna Tomaro Ka Premadhana, Soetishwarapuri Premarasagar. At the last stage of his life, Sri Madhavendra Puri became an invalid and completely unable to move. And Ishwarapuri so completely engaged himself in his service that he personally cleaned up his stool and urine, always chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and reminding Sri Madhavendra Puri about the pastimes of Lord Krishna in the last stage of his life. Ishwarapuri gave the best service among his disciples. Thus, Madhavendra Puri, being very pleased with him, blessed him, saying, "My dear boy, I can only pray to Krishna that he would be pleased with you." Thus, Ishwarapuri, by the grace of his spiritual master, Sri Madhavendra Puri, became a great devotee in the ocean of love of Godhead. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur states in the Gurvastaka prayer, Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado, Yasya prasadan nagati kutopi, By the mercy of the spiritual master, one is blessed by the mercy of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. It is by the mercy of the spiritual master that one becomes perfect, as vividly exemplified here. A Vaishnava is always protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but if he appears to be an invalid, this gives a chance to his disciples to serve him. Ishwarapuri pleased his spiritual master by service, and by the blessings of his spiritual master, he became such a great personality that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted him as his spiritual master. Sri Ishwarapuri was the spiritual master of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but before initiating Lord Chaitanya, he went to Navadvipa and lived for a few months in the house of Gopinatha Acharya. At that time, Lord Chaitanya became acquainted with him, and it is understood that he served Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by reciting his book, Krishna Lilamrita. This is explained in Sri Chaitanya Bhagavata, Adi Lila, chapter 11. To teach others by example how to be a faithful disciple of one's spiritual master, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, visited the birthplace of Ishwarapuri at Kamarhata and collected some earth from his birth site. This he kept very carefully, and he used to eat a small portion of it daily. This is stated in the Chaitanya Bhagavata, Adi Lila, chapter 17. It has now become customary for devotees following the example of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to go there and collect some earth from that place. Very, very, very special. So we can continue with our Bhagavatam class. First, we'll have Prabhupada chanting Jaya Radha Madhava. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Sai. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava
Jai Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajakacarya Ashtottara Shatashri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivas Adi Gaur Bhaktivedanta ki jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Sam Kund Radha Kund Giridhardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Swami Bhaktivedanta ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Jamuna Mai ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Swami Bhaktivedanta ki jai. All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O my Lord, Sri Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Narayanam namaskritya. Narayanam namaskritya. Naram cheva narottamam. Naram cheva narottamam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Tato Jayam Mudirayet. Tato Jayam Mudirayet. One should utter the means of conquest, Srimad-bhagavatam, after offering respectful obeisances, 1, to the personality of Godhead, Narayana, 2, to the Narayana Rishi, who is the supermost human being, 3, to the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, then 4, to Srila Vyasadeva, the author, from Srimad-bhagavatam 1-4. Welcome to this reading and discussion on Srimad-bhagavatam. We are reading from Canto 1, Chapter 7, text number 40. Evam Sutta Uvacha, Evam Parakshita Dharamam, Partah Krishnena Choditaha, Nechatantam Guru Sutam, Yadyapi Atmahanam Mohan, Sutta Goswami, Uvacha, said, Evam, thus, Parikshata, being examined, Dharamam, in the matter of duty, Partha, Sri Arjuna, Krishnena, by Lord Krishna, Chodita, being encouraged, Nechat, did not like, Hantum, to kill, Guru Sutam, the son of his teacher, Yadyapi, although, Atmahanam, murderer of sons, Mohan, very great. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. In spite of thus being encouraged and examined in religiosity by Lord Krishna for killing the son of Dronacharya, Arjuna himself, a great soul, did not like the idea of killing him, although he was a heinous murderer of his family members. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Arjuna was a great soul undoubtedly, which is proved here also. He's encouraged herein personally by the Lord in the matter of killing the son of Drona, but Arjuna considers the right path that the son of his great teacher may be spared for only qualification that he happens to be the son of Dronacharya. And even though he is an unworthy son of a great family, he has had done all sorts of heinous acts whimsically for no one's benefit. Lord Sri Krishna encouraged Arjuna outwardly just to test Arjuna's sense of duty. It is not that Arjuna was incomplete in the sense of his duty. Neither it is that Lord Sri Krishna was unaware of Arjuna's sense of duty. But it is just to manifest the faith in duty of a pure devotee of the Lord. Lord Sri Krishna put to test many of his pure devotees just to magnify the sense of duty of such pure devotees. The gopis were also put to such test, as well as Prahlad Maharaj also was put to such test. But all such pure devotees came out successful in the respective tests by the Lord. Text number 41. Ata upetya svasibiram govinda priyasarati Nyavedayat tat priyaye sochayanti atmajan hatan ata. Thereafter, upetya, having reached sva on sibiram, camp, Govinda, one who enlivens the senses, Lord Sri Krishna, priya, dear, sarati, the chariot man, Nyavedayat, entrusted to, tat, him, priyai, unto the dear, Sochanti, lamenting for, Atmajan, own sons, Hatan, murdered. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Thereafter, reaching his own camp, Arjuna, along with his dear friend and chariot man, Sri Krishna, entrusted the murderer unto his dear wife, who was lamenting for her murdered sons. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Transcendental relation of Arjuna with Krishna is of dearmost friendship. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has himself claimed Arjuna as the dearmost friend. Every living being is thus related with the Supreme Lord by some sort of affectionate relation, either as servant, or as friend, or as parents, or as an object of conjugal love. Everyone thus can enjoy the company of the Lord in the spiritual realm, if at all anyone desire for this happy relation and sincerely tries for it in the process of the bhakti yoga. Om Ajnanati Mirandasya Jnanam Jana Shalakaya Chakshuran Meritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaham Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyaya Bhaktivedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Bhagavad Vandana Kadyam Guru Vandana Purvakam Kshiram Sharkara Yuktam Kadate Visheshataha Adadana Srinam Danteridam Yachi Punah Punah Srimad-Rupa Padam Bhojadurishyam Janma Janmani Amsho Bhagavatosmyaham Sadadaso asmi sarabata tat kripa pekshako nityam tat preshta sat karomisvam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today being such a very special, most auspicious day where we are celebrating the disappearance of Ishwarapuri and also Shivaratri, very appropriate that we're reading these very important verse and purports by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. In text number 40, Prabhupada mentions how the devotees are sometimes put to test by the Lord. Krishna says, but Lord Sri Krishna put to test many of his pure devotees just to magnify the sense of duty. The gopis were put to such tests as well. Prahlad Maharaj also was put to such a test, but all such pure devotees came out successful in the respectful test by the Lord. Now, this is a very important point. We've all heard from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 11, where Krishna describes, Ye yatamam prapadyante tam tateva bhajamyaham. As they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. And also, we all know this verse from Bhagavad Gita, Ananyas chintayanto mam ye janaha paryupasate Tesham nitya biyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. To those who are surrendered to Krishna, he protects them. He always protects the devotee. Name bhakta pranashyati. In the Hari Bhakti Vilas, there's a description by Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, different prayers when we do deity worship. At the end of the deity worship, we're supposed to offer request to Krishna to forgive us for any offenses. And one of these prayers is a prayer that Draupadi gave in the Mahabharata. Pratignata Govinda name bhakta pranashyati iti samsmritya pranam sandarayamyam. Draupadi told Lord Krishna, my dear Lord Krishna, you have promised that your devotee will never perish. That is your pratigna, your promise, your solemn vow. Therefore, remembering this, samsmritya, remembering this again and again, I maintain my life. This is a beautiful devotional offering that Draupadi, and this is the same point that Prabhupada is making here. And this is very, very important for devotees to understand this. The next text, in text 41, Prabhupada explains the transcendental relation of Arjuna with Krishna is of the dearmost friendship. This is a very important point. This is a very special rasa that Arjuna is having with Lord Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has himself claimed Arjuna as the dearmost friend. Every living being is thus related with the Supreme Lord by some sort of affectionate relation, either as servant or as friend or as parents or as an object of conjugal love. This is very important. I'm just going to read from a text that Prabhupada spoke about this relationship between Arjuna and Krishna. This is from Srimad-bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15, text number 17. In the purport, Prabhupada explains, the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the object of worship both by the impersonalists and by the devotees of the Lord. The impersonalist worship his glowing effulgence emanating from his transcendental body of eternal form, bliss, and knowledge. And the devotees, thank you, Prabhu. And the devotees worship him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who are below even the impersonalists consider him to be one of the great historical personalities The Lord, however, descends to attract all by his specific transcendental pastimes, and thus he plays the part of the most perfect master, friend, son, and lover. His transcendental relation with Arjuna was in friendship, and the Lord therefore played the part perfectly, as he did with his parents, lovers, and wives. While playing in such a perfect transcendental relation, the devotee forgets by the internal potency of the Lord that his friend or son is the supreme personality of Godhead, although sometimes the devotee is bewildered by the acts of the Lord. After the departure of the Lord, Arjuna was conscious of his great friend, but there was no mistake on the part of Arjuna, nor any ill estimation of the Lord. Intelligent men are attracted by the transcendental acting of the Lord with a pure, unalloyed devotee like Arjuna. Just yesterday, somebody sent me some kind of a post about a company named BlackRock. BlackRock is a big investment manager who manages something like $11 trillion of assets around the world. I was thinking, well, we as Vaishnava also have our own BlackRock, Shaligrams, and Krishna, the deity of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, is actually BlackRock. Gopal Bhatta Goswami went to take his bath in the river, Yamuna. All the other Goswamis had nice deities, but he had gone to Nepal at the river Gandaki and brought some shaligrams. Every day he was worshiping his shaligrams. So he went to take his bath to the Yamuna, and someday he came back and this beautiful black rock deity of Radharaman was fully manifested. So we have our own transcendental black rock, which is worth more than any amount of wealth that anybody in the world has. Why? Because this is directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead manifested so that the devotees can worship him. In the same way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, appeared, and gave us his transcendental pastimes, manifested his transcendental activities so that all the devotees can take advantage of this merciful incarnation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He made things very, very simple. Very, very simple. Not complicated, not difficult. What did he do for this age of Kali Yuga? Introduce the chanting of the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is the power of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Prabhupada used to often quote from a verse from the Srimad-bhagavatam 12th canto. Kaler doshan nidhi rajan astyeko mahan gunaha kirtanadiva krishnasya mukta sangha param rajet. That this age of Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults. There are so many faults everywhere, dosha nidhi. But there is one great quality. Kirtana deva Krishnasya mukta sangha parambrajari. Here's the actual translation. My dear king, although Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, there is still one good quality about this age. Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, one can become free from material bondage and be promoted to the transcendental kingdom. Mataji Rochisa was asking a question whether or not the deity of Dwarkadish was actually Black Rock. Yes. The deity of Radharaman is also transcendental Black Rock Shaligram type. So that answers. So this is the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Do we have any comments or remarks or admonishments, chastisements, or anything?
Yes, Prabhu, here's a question from Abhiram Thakur Das Prabhu. Hare Krishna, please pass on my question when appropriate. It is said in the scriptures that every living being has an eternal relationship with the Lord. Does this mean that this relationship has existed from time immemorial and is fixed and unchanging, and that spiritual practice simply helps us revive it by cleansing the heart? Or is it possible that this relationship develops or changes over time through our present spiritual practice?
Yes, this is a very good question. The answer is yes and no. Yes, it is eternal. Every living being, Prabhupada has stated this many times. Every living being, especially human beings, have an eternal relationship with Krishna, but now we are covered. And when it is uncovered by the process of bhakti, then we will have that relationship. And yes, it can be changed. There was one conversation where Bhaktivedanta Swami was asking Prabhupada whether if somebody has a relationship with Krishna in Vaikuntha, whether he can be promoted to Goloka Vrindavan. It says, Prabhupada says, yes, that is possible. But generally they are fixed. And Prabhupada said there is no difference between a relationship with Krishna in Vaikuntha as a servant or as a friend and relationship in Goloka Vrindavan. This Prabhupada said, this is all transcendental. This is not like a mundane relationship in this world. But this is a very, very good question, which I suggest that you can respectfully do, is go to the prabhupadbooks.com or go on Google and Prabhupada or Prabhupada.com, and you research the query there, relationships with Krishna or rasa with Krishna, because there's a lot of different angles to this question that Prabhupada dealt in his books as well as conversations. But this is a very, very nice, beautiful question. Thank you for mentioning that. Bhaktin Sushma mentioned Radharaman Didi is Shaligram Shila. Yes, it is. As a matter of fact, if you go on Google and put the inquiry images of Radharaman, you can see some of them that the deity has little teeth, and these were not put by some sculptor. The deity, the Shaligram, was also manifested with little white teeth. Very, very special. It's very interesting. The government of India one time brought in the Archaeological Survey of India, brought in some people to try to test whether those teeth had been inserted there by some Brahmins. They didn't touch the deity. They concluded, no, this is all natural. So this is very, very special that Krishna is manifested even with a set of teeth. And this has the most beautiful decoration, beautiful standard of worship in Vrindavan. Very, very, very special. Hare Krishna. Somebody was asking about Japa link, and somebody put the Japa link there in the YouTube. Who was Ishvara Puri in Krishna Lila, and is there any specific reason that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to take initiation from Ishvara Puri? I don't really know the answer to that question. I can look it up. It's not very difficult to find. As far as why it took initiation, but Prabhupada explains in the purport, there's a lot of different angles to that initiation. The fact that Ishvara Puri accepted initiation from Madhavendra Puri, and he rendered service to Madhavendra Puri, and he got the blessings that he would always remember Krishna. So that was very special. So this is the position. As far as exactly why, maybe you can look it up in Prabhupada's books and let us know next time we speak. I'm just trying to get you an answer as to the first question. Who is Ishvara Puri in the Krishna Lila? Just 1 second here. Hare Krishna. In a Gorganashati Dipika, there's all the description of the associates of Lord Chaitanya is given. I don't have the book right in front of me. It seems I can't find the answer right now, but I will look it up, and if you send me an email, I will let you know the answer. Okay, next question.
So far, I don't see any other questions.
Any comments? Remarks?
Vijay Pandit Prabhu has his hand raised.
Okay, go ahead, Prabhu.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
It's just a question, formal question. Even Ishvara Puri was a spiritual master of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What was the reason to have taken sannyas from Keshava Bharati Maharaj? What was the reason?
Why Lord Chaitanya took initiation from Keshav Bharati?
Yes, and not from Ishvara Puri. As a sannyas, I mean, for sannyas.
Sannyas, usually at that time in India, people took different sannyas from different Shankaracharya Sampradaya. It was like a ceremony. It basically, Prabhupada explains in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu blessed Keshav Bharati. That's how Keshav Bharati basically gave sannyas to Lord Chaitanya, but Lord Chaitanya gave him the mantra. So this is a very special, unique, transcendental pastimes that, is very, very intimate, because it was common in those days for people to take sannyas, for people in the Shankaracharya Sampradaya, even Vaishnavas. As a matter of fact, this particular point has been raised by some critics who criticize the Gaudiya Sampradaya, that you have people that are Madhavendra Puri, Ishvara Puri, but yet Lakshmipati Tirtha, the sannyasis of the Madhva Sampradaya, use the title Tirtha. But then Prabhupada never made much of an issue with it, just like the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taking sannyas initiation from Keshav Bharati, because in those days, taking sannyas from a sannyasi, even if it's from a different sampradaya, was never much of an issue. That's the best I can say at this point. Oh, here we go. Here's an explanation. Here's Srimad-bhagavatam introduction. While he was contemplating accepting the sannyas order, it so happened that Keshav Bharati, a sannyasi of the Mayavadi school and resident of Katwa in Bengal, visited Navadvip and was invited to dine with the Lord. When Keshav Bharati came to his house, the Lord asked him to award him the sannyas order of life. This was a matter of formality. The sannyas order is to be accepted from another sannyasi. Although the Lord was independent in all respects, still, to keep up the formality of the Shastras, he accepted the sannyas order from Keshav Bharati, although Keshav Bharati was not in the Vaishnava Sampradaya school. After consulting with Keshav Bharati, the Lord left Navadvip for Katwa to formally accept the sannyas order of life. He was accompanied by Srila Nityananda Prabhu, Chandrasekhar-Acharya, and Mukunda Datta. Those three assisted him in the details of the ceremony. The incident of the Lord accepting the sannyas order is very elaborately described in the Chaitanya Bhagavata by Srila Vrindavana Das Thakur. Very nice. Oh, another quote from Srila Prabhupada, Adi Lila, chapter 3, text 34. According to the regulation of the disciplic succession, one who wishes to enter the renounced order in Shankar's sect must first be trained as a brahmachari under a bona fide sannyasi. The brahmachari's name is ascertained according to the group to which the sannyasi belongs. Lord Chaitanya accepted sannyas from Keshava Bharati. When he first approached Keshava Bharati, he was accepted as a brahmachari with the name Sri Krishna Chaitanya Brahmachari. After he took sannyas, he preferred to keep the name Krishna Chaitanya. The great authorities in the disciplic session had not offered to explain why Lord Chaitanya refused to take the name Bharati after he took sannyas from a Bharati, until Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj volunteered the explanation that because a sannyasi in the Shankara Sampradaya thinks that he has become the supreme, Lord Chaitanya, wanting to avoid such a misconception, kept the name Sri Krishna Chaitanya, placing himself as an eternal servitor. A brahmachari is supposed to serve the spiritual master. Therefore, he did not negate that relationship of servitude to his spiritual master. Accepting such a position is favorable for the relationship between the disciple and the spiritual master. The authentic biographies also mention that Lord Chaitanya accepted the danda, rod, and begging pot, symbolic of the sannyas order at the time he took sannyas. Very interesting explanation. Okay, any other question? Dharma Bhavana, you had some comment you would want to make?
Okay, yeah, Hare Krishna. Let me get ready here. I was just saying at the beginning, we're talking about how Shastra is central. Whatever we know or understand, it comes from the scriptures. But at the same time, we understand that, Prabhupada did things according to time, place, and circumstances, and sometimes it was different from certain Shastric statements. So my question is, it seems like this has all been arranged for us to understand for the duration of our mission, how Prabhupada was such an important personality that he could arrange things according to time, place, and circumstances and make great success. And because so many devotees are talking about the last few months about reading from scripture about can a man be a guru or a lady can be a guru. So a lot of these points about how important Shastra is seem like it's really important. And we talked about how the great empowered personalities, they can do things a little bit differently than some of the Shastric statements. Can you explain that more?
Yes, that is a very important, essential point, which we covered in the discussion about Ishvara Puri, that conversation from Srila Prabhupada with Yarubara in 1972, where Prabhupada says, Acharya is always cautious that he may not be subject to criticism. But who criticizes Acharya? He becomes immediately offender. Because he's playing the part of Acharya, he plays as far as possible. But sometimes for preaching work, he might have to do something which is not consistent. So this is a point that was brought up during Prabhupada's manifested presence by many of his contemporary and godbrothers. They criticized Prabhupada for allowing the men and women to go on Sankirtan together, for women doing the puja, for Prabhupada's danda being too long, for allowing devotees to wear karmi clothes on Sankirtan. There was so many criticisms that were leveled against Srila Prabhupada. And the point that you're making is very important. The empowered Acharya is not subject to the mundane rules and regulations. There are so many statements in the Shastra, also by Bhaktivedanta Thakur, that self-realized devotees are beyond the rules and regulations of the Shastra. It's not that they don't follow the Shastra. Because of the preaching potency of such personalities, they're empowered to adjust according to time, place, and circumstances. So this is what Prabhupada did with many of his innovations. Just like I mentioned before, in India, you will not find in major temples like in Vrindavan, Sri Rangam, Udupi, Dwarka, Badrinath, you will not find women doing the pujari work. This is their tradition. This is their custom. But Prabhupada did away with this tradition. He engaged women in Sankirtan, in leading Kirtan, giving Bhagavatam class, doing the worship of the deities. So many things that he introduced were unprecedented because his preaching and his mission was unprecedented. Therefore, but he had the full blessings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the full preaching was manifested. This is very important because there is also a very important point that is raised in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, where it is mentioned that those who are pure Vaishnavas, their activities cannot be understood even by the most intelligent man. Vaishnavara kriyar bhujaya na bhujaya. That even the most intelligent man cannot understand the activities of a pure Vaishnava. That is why, in order to understand the activities of a Shakti of a Avatar, of a topmost pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, one cannot adopt a critical, smarta-like view. That will not work. And Prabhupada explains this in so many places in his purports, especially with regards to initiating people that are born in less than Shudra families, Mlechas and Yavanas like us in the West. Because there was a lot of criticism. There was a conversation in the Prabhupada conversation book where Prabhupada says that many of the Hindus and the Brahmins and the Mayavadis in India, they used to say, Swami Bhaktivedanta Hindu Dharma Nastahe. He is spoiling the Hindu Dharma by initiating all these Westerners as Brahmanas. But Prabhupada explains that this is mentioned by Sanatana Goswami and Gopal Bhatta Goswami in the Hari Bhakti Vilas. Prabhupada has quoted so many verses in his purport explaining this is perfectly bona fide according to the Shastra and according to the tenets of Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted Haridas Thakur, who was born in a Mlecha family. Some people in India, they call Haridas Thakur Yavana Haridas. Yavana Haridas, Muslim Haridas. Of course, Prabhupada never used that term, but this is common. People would sometimes point out Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted Haridas Thakur as Namacharya. He did away with all this caste and greed and nonsense consideration, which are not according to the Shastra. So I hope that helps.
Prabhu, we have an announcement by Andabhaya Mataji. She says,
yes, Mataji.
A very wonderful soul left his body Friday here in Prabhupada village. Ekanath Prabhu, who instituted the archives with over 8,000 letters from the 60s and 70s, left on Ekadashi back home, back to Godhead.
Yes.
And there's a question by Mother Ruchisha. She says, Sri Krishna Lilamrita from Ishwarapuri, is it different than Srimad-bhagavatam 10th canto?
Yes, it is. It's a special book. I don't think Prabhupada did not translate that book. In the Chaitanya Bhagavata, there was a story that Ishwarapuri asked Lord Chaitanya in confidence whether there was any fault or any defect in his book. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, there's no defect whatsoever in your writing. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu elaborated that whoever finds fault with a great Mahabhagavata or a great Vaishnava is a great offender. So that particular book, I've never seen it, but somebody can try to find it somewhere.
Then there's a question by Bhakta Hari Prasad. In the purport to Bhagavad Gita 2.20, Srila Prabhupada says, the consciousness of the soul is, however, different from consciousness of the Supreme, because the Supreme Consciousness is all knowledge, past, present, and future. The consciousness of the individual soul is prone to be forgetful. Does this forgetfulness also happen when in Vaikuntha? If so, does this explain the fall down of jivas into the material world from the spiritual world?
Okay. Could you summarize that question again here? Let me just read it here.
He's saying that the individual soul can be forgetful. Does that forgetfulness also happen in the spiritual world? And is that why we fell down into the material world?
Well, Prabhupada says in the spiritual world, you never fall down. You never forget. But Prabhupada also mentioned in different conversations that because we have independence, minute independence, it's possible to fall down. The point is that Prabhupada used to often say whenever these discussions came up. Prabhupada's main point, just like if you fall into the ocean, you don't have to start wondering, how did you fall? What happened? He says, just try to get out. If somebody gives you a rope to pull you out of the ocean, just grab the rope and come out. So the forgetfulness in Vaikuntha, there's no forgetfulness of Krishna in Vaikuntha because everybody remembers Krishna. As a matter of fact, as part of these discussions, there's an interesting statement in the third or fourth canto. Prabhupada says, therefore, it is a fact that no one falls from Vaikuntha. And Prabhupada at other times in different conversations, Prabhupada says, we have fallen, we have the tendency to forget because, and people ask him, well, why? Because we have minute independence. We're not a stone or a rock. So that is the position. We have to remember, because Krishna says in several places in Bhagavad Gita, Yad gatva nanivartante tadama paramam mama. Once somebody reaches my abode, he never comes back to this material world. It's also there in chapter 4, text number 9, Janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tatpataha. Tyaktva deham punara janma naiti mamidi so Arjuna. That once you give up this body and you come back to me, you don't come back and suffer here. But I know that this is a very animated discussion with many people from other institutions on the internet because Prabhupada made a lot of comments. But Prabhupada himself also said in the third canto, it is a fact that no one falls from Vaikuntha. So, a few points. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, there's a question from Jairaj Kilkar. He's asking, is Srimad-bhagavatam of ISKCON, Canto 11 and 12, good to read?
You could read the verses. I don't suggest you read the purports because that book was made under a great Vaishnava parade against Pradyumna, who had been directly authorized by Srila Prabhupada to translate the Srimad-bhagavatam. In 1970, Pradyumna told me the complete story. How Prabhupada told him, don't make your own comments. Just translate the commentaries of the Acharyas. But when Pradyumna wrote a letter to Sattvarup in August of 1978, which was not favorable to their concocted self-appointed guru system and was criticizing everything that they were doing, they decided to take the service away from him. So after 1979, when Pradyumna, myself, and 40 other devotees were kicked out of Vrindavan, the GBC decided to steal his service away, take the service away from him. I do not recommend that you read these purports on the 12th canto. They were never authorized by Srila Prabhupada. The 10th canto of the Bhagavatam has been translated in the Krishna books, and everything that has been given in the 11th and 12th canto is also given in numerous other places in Prabhupada's purports, that there is nothing that's been missed here. Just a few comments. I hope that helps.
Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, would you like to read some of the information you sent about Shivaratri?
Yes, definitely.
We have 10 minutes left.
Let me just get the transcendental nectar here. So today we're celebrating Shivaratri. Prabhupada used to often comment that Shivaratri is the celebration of Lord Shiva. There's a comment from the Krishna book in chapter number 34. Chapter 34, Srila Prabhupada describes, once upon a time, the Kaur men of Vrindavana, headed by Nanda Maharaja, desired to go to Ambikavana to observe the Shivaratri ceremony. The Rasa Lila was performed during the autumn, and after that, the next big ceremony is Holi, or the Dola Yatra ceremony. Between the Dola Yatra ceremony and the Rasa Lila ceremony, there is an important ceremony called Shivaratri, which is especially observed by the Shivites, or devotees of Lord Shiva. Sometimes the Vaishnavas also observe this ceremony because they accept Lord Shiva as the foremost Vaishnava. But the function of Shivaratri is not observed very regularly by the bhaktas or devotees of Krishna. Under the circumstances, Srimad-bhagavatam states that Nanda Maharaj and the other cowherd men once upon a time desired. This means that they were not regularly observing the Shivaratri function, but that once upon a time they wanted to go to Ambikavana out of curiosity. Next, there's a morning walk excerpt in May 1st, 1974 in Bombay, India, Indian man. Vidyadhara himself says that even though he was a demigod, he was condemned to become a serpent. But because he was touched by the lotus feet of Krishna, he immediately came to Krishna consciousness. He admitted, however, that in his previous life, he was actually sinful. Prabhupada, observing Shivaratri, Nanda Maharaj and all the Kaura men, they increase their attachment for Krishna. That is wanted. Next is what is a position of Lord Shiva. That was compiled by a devotee named Vyasasana in New Vrindavan, who has a wonderful website called the Hare Krishna Movement. He sends regular email. Madhavisa, Prabhupada, what is the position of Lord Shiva? Prabhupada, Lord Shiva is a demigod, but he is higher than all other demigods. He is higher than Lord Brahma also, but he is not the Supreme Lord. Just like there are different gradations, that is not difficult to understand. In society also, there are different gradations. Similarly, the living entities, there are different gradations. Some of the living entities are situated in higher planets. Some of them are situated in lower planets. And some of them are situated in high-grade life and some in low-grade life. So the demigods are also living entities, but they're enjoying better standard of life due to their acts of piety. But Lord Shiva is not amongst the living entities. He's above the living entities, but he is counted as one of the demigods. But his position is better than Lord Brahma, even. Brahma is said to be the highest living entity within the universe, and Lord Shiva's position is higher than that of Lord Brahma. Madhavisa, does Lord Shiva have a wife like a consort? Prabhupada, yes, Parvati, Sati. Everyone's got wife, yes, Shakti. Devotee, is Lord Shiva a devotee of Lord Krishna? Prabhupada, yes, everyone is devotee. Only the madmen, they're not devotees. Any sane man is devotee. Sanity means become devotee. That is sanity. And one who is not a devotee is insane. So how can you expect that Lord Shiva is not a devotee? He's not insane. We, the material, ordinary living entities who are in the lower grades of life, are all insane. Dayananda, does Lord Shiva have a relationship with Durga? Prabhupada, yes. Durga is the material energy. So Lord Shiva is directly connected with the material energy. Therefore, he is less than Lord Vishnu. Vishnu is not directly related with the material energy. The example is given in the Brahma Samhita. Just like milk, as soon as it comes in touch with something sour, it becomes yogurt. The yogurt is nothing but milk, but in connection with some sour material, it is yogurt. So yogurt is milk, but it is not milk also. Your child requires milk. You cannot give yogurt. Somebody can argue, oh, yogurt is milk preparation, why not give? No, it will be not beneficial for the child. Similarly, if you want release from this material world, you have to take to Vishnu, no other demigod. If you want strength, then you have to drink milk, not yogurt. You can eat yogurt at times for some taste or for some particular purpose, but milk is general drinking. Just take the statistics. How many bottles of milk are sold in the store? How many bottles of yogurt are sold? If yogurt and milk are the same thing, why they'll demand milk and not the yogurt? Is that right? Yes. But nobody can put argument, oh, why do you take milk? Take yogurt. It is that there is a description in the Srimad-bhagavatam in the 11th canto that Lord Shiva Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu is the topmost Vaishnava. Because sometimes people ask, what is that third eye in the middle of Lord Shiva's face? That is because he is in constant meditation on the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Any other question or chastisement?
Yes, Prabhu, we're getting down to almost 11:30. There is one question from Jiva Goswami Prabhu. He is asking, and back to Bhagavad Gita 4.9, how can we know the transcendental nature of his appearance and activities?
Read the Krishna book from Prabhupada. You hear from the pure devotee. That is the only way to properly understand the transcendental nature and activities of Krishna. Hear Srimad-bhagavatam. As a matter of fact, this week, while I was doing some transcendental research on Srimad-bhagavatam, I wanted to read this. This is a very important point about the Srimad-bhagavatam, which relates directly to your question. Let me just find this verse here. Prabhupada describes in Srimad-bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3, Text 43. Canto 1, Chapter 3, Text 43. This Bhagavat Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. Prabhupada explains in the purport, Lord Sri Krishna as his eternal Dhamma or abode, where he eternally enjoys himself with his eternal associates and paraphernalia. And his eternal abode is a manifestation of his internal energy, whereas the material world is a manifestation of his external energy. When he descends on the material world, he displays himself with all paraphernalia in his internal potency, which is called Atma Maya. His form, name, fame, paraphernalia, abode, etc. are not therefore creations of matter. He descends to reclaim the fallen souls and to reestablish codes of religion which are directly enacted by him. Except for God, no one can establish the principles of religion. Either he or a suitable person empowered by him can dictate the code of religion. Note the words here, or a suitable person empowered by him. Real religion means to know God, our relation with him, and our duties in relation with him, and to know ultimately our destination after leaving this material body. The conditioned souls who are entrapped by the material energy hardly know all these principles of life. And at the end of the purport, Prabhupada explains the last two sentences. Bhagavad Gita is the preliminary study of the Bhagavatam, and Srimad-bhagavatam is the summum bonum of life. Lord Sri Krishna personified. We must therefore accept Srimad-bhagavatam as the direct representation of Lord Krishna. One who can see Srimad-bhagavatam can see also Lord Sri Krishna in person. They are identical. This, in my insignificant realization, is the actual answer to this most important question. Just hear Srimad-bhagavatam.
Prabhu, we have time for one more question. Jairaj Kilkar is asking, is there any suggested order to read and hear Srila Prabhupada's books, audios, videos, letters?
Well, Prabhupada one time said, you can hear, just like if you take sugar from any part of the pot, it will taste sweet. So you can take any book, anywhere, anytime, it will always be transcendental. But Prabhupada introduced things in a systematic way. He introduced Ishopanishad, he introduced the Easy Journey to Other Planets, then the Ishopanishad, then the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, different little books from lectures, teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Krishna book, Nectar of Devotion, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad-bhagavatam. All of these books are all transcendental, provided you get an original, non-adulterated book. So this is the point. This Prabhupada books, their link is not all original books, although they've tried. They claim, PrabhupadaBooks.com, that it's all original books. It's not all original books. Many of these books have been adulterated. So you can, Prabhupada used to teach from Bhagavad Gita in the morning, in the evening, Srimad-bhagavatam in the morning. When the Nectar of Devotion was introduced in 1970 in Los Angeles, we used to read every day after prasadam for about 40-45 minutes. So there's a lot of different choices. But in the beginning, if you're not familiar with Prabhupada's books, what you may want to do is start with Bhagavad Gita. Also read the Easy Journey to Other Planets, Sri Upanishad. And then what I say, then the teachings of Lord Chaitanya is very important. And then you have the Nectar of Devotion. All these books are very important. That's all I can say. Hare Krishna.
So we've come to the end of the class today. Prabhu, if you would like to make announcements before you read the Vanchakalpa prayers.
Well, the announcement, I want to thank all of you for attending this most important program. We have Lord Chaitanya's Transcendental Appearance Day is going to happen in a few weeks. So we're going to have a special program the Sunday before. And next week, we're going to be dealing with Purushottam Das Thakur and Jagannath Das Babaji. On Wednesday of this week is the disappearance day of Jagannath Das Babaji and Sri Rasikananda Prabhu. So, and then on Saturday next week, Purushottam Das Thakur. So on Sunday next week, you're going to be able to host a program next Sunday, Prabhu, Ram Raghava?
Yes, yes.
Okay. We're going to deal with these great acharyas and deal with that. And then the following week, the Sunday, because the Purnima is, according to Mayapur calendar, is on Tuesday. In America, it will be observed on Monday with many people. So on the Sunday, March 1st, we'll have Gaur Purnima. We're going to read from all kinds of nectar about the appearance of Lord Chaitanya, from Chaitanya Charitamrita, from Srila Prabhupada's book. So next week, we will read about a few of these great acharyas, especially Jagannath Das Babaji, and his role in this rediscovering the exact location of Lord Chaitanya's birthplace. So thank you, everyone, for attending and participating. And anybody who has any question, you can always write to us, and we're more happy to try to oblige. Vanchakalpa taru bhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisance. We all offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like these are trees, and who are full of compassion for the fallen souls. Hare Krishna, all glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,